So you're the kind of person who wants to get past the hype,
Yeah, like understand what's really going on.
especially with the, potentially huge, like living healthier longer.
Hmm.
Well, that's exactly what we're getting into today. We're doing a deep dive into the Pearl trial.
Ah, the human study on rapamycin and Healthspan.
Exactly. And if you're looking for those aha moments, well, rapamycin's got this big reputation in longevity science.
It definitely does. But this trial, it had some surprising twists.
For sure. So our mission today is simple.
Hmm.
Unpack what Pearl actually found about rapamycin's potential benefits in humans.
And we're going straight to the source for that.
Yep, using excerpts from the actual study report, Pearl trial, rapamycin's impact on human health span.
So no secondhand accounts. We're looking at the data they published.
And what I find fascinating, just before we jump in, is how this was funded.
Oh, yeah, the crowdfunding aspect.
Right, ordinary people chipped in. It just shows how much interest there is in this, in healthy aging research.
It really does. A strong signal of public engagement. Okay, so rapamycin.
Let's start there. What in the world is it, and why all the buzz?
Well, rapamycin is this molecule, and its main job, or what we focus on, is targeting a pathway called mTORC1.
mTORC1, okay.
Think of it like a master switch in our cells. It controls growth, energy use, division, really fundamental stuff.
And inhibiting it. That's the key.
That seems to be the trick, yes. When you inhibit mTORC1, we've seen lifespan extension in, well, almost everything researchers have tested it on.
Like yeast, worms.
All the way up to mice, definitely. Significant effects there. And even some promising signs in monkeys.
Right, those mice studies made headlines. So there's a solid basis from animal research suggesting it could do something.
A very strong basis.
But it's not some brand new compound cooked up in a lab recently, is it?
No, not at all. Rapamycin's actually an FDA-approved drug already. Sirolimus is the generic name.
Oh, right. What's it approved for?
It's mainly used as an immunosuppressant, so to stop the body from rejecting transplanted organs like kidneys.
Ah, okay. So we already know a fair bit about its safety in humans at certain doses.
Exactly. And that existing approval, that history, made it, let's say, feasible to start exploring it for other things, like aging. We weren't starting completely from scratch regarding human safety.
Got it. So compelling animal data, established drug status, that sets the stage nicely for Pearl. How was the trial actually set up, the design?
Okay, so Pearl ran for 48 weeks. It was randomized, placebo-controlled, the gold standard, really.
Meaning some people got the drug, some got a dummy pill, and it was randomly assigned.
Precisely. They had 3 groups. Group 1 got 5 milligrams of rapamycin once a week.
Okay.
Group 2 got 10 milligrams, also weekly. And Group 3 got the placebo. Looked identical, but, inactive.
Standard procedure. How many people were involved?
They had 114 participants who finished the study.
And their age?
Average age was right around 60. But here's a really, really crucial point about the rapamycin they used.
Oh, what's that?
It wasn't the standard commercial version, sirolimus. It was a compounded form.
Compounded, meaning specially mixed.
Yeah. And it turned out this compounded version had much lower bioavailability. Think of it like only about a third as much actually got into the bloodstream and was active compared to the commercial drug.
Wow, okay. So a third is effective, roughly.
That's the estimate, yeah. So when we talk about 5 milligram or 10 milligram doses, the actual effective dose hitting the body was significantly lower.
That's huge.
Yeah.
We absolutely need to keep that in mind when looking at the results. It feels like the study might have been, well, underdosed effectively.
That's a very fair assessment. It's a major caveat.
Okay. And the participants themselves, any key demographics?
Well, one thing that stood out was the gender split. It was mostly men. Only 40 of the 114 participants were women.
Okay. So 114 people, average age 60, mostly male, and using a lower bioavailability rapamycin. Got the picture.
Right.
So what did they find? Let's start with safety, as the report does. Was this low-dose compounded rapamycin safe for these folks?
The good news on that front is yes, generally. The trial confirmed that at these weekly doses, the effective ones being lower, remember it seemed safe and was well tolerated, meaning they didn't see big differences in side effects between the rapamycin groups and the placebo group. Nothing major jumped out.
Any changes in, body weight or composition?
They looked at that, including visceral fat, the dangerous internal fat. And no, things remained pretty stable across the groups. No significant changes reported there.
Okay, that's reassuring. So at least over a year at these doses, no major safety alarms in this generally healthy group.
Correct. That was a key finding.
Yeah, the part everyone wants to know about.
Yeah.
the potential benefits. The report really flags that women seem to get the most out of it.
Yes, this is probably the most striking result and maybe unexpected. Women in the 10 milligram group, remember, the higher dose, though still effectively lower than label, showed a statistically significant increase in lean muscle mass.
Wow. Lean muscle mass, that's critical as we age.
Absolutely critical for function, metabolism, preventing frailty. And that wasn't all for the women in that group.
What else?
They also reported a significant reduction in pain.
Less pain and more muscle. That sounds pretty good.
It's a compelling combination, right? Better physical function, better quality of life, potentially. And these effects were specifically noted as significant in the women at that 10 milligram dose.
This gender difference is really jumping out then.
It's probably the biggest headline finding from Pearl, yeah.
What about the lower dose, the 5 milligram group? Any benefits seen there for men or women?
So in the 5 milligram group, which had both men and women, people did report some general health improvements,
Like what?
including improvements in emotional well-being. They felt better, basically.
Okay, that's positive.
However, and this is a big however, the placebo group also reported improvements in emotional well-being.
Ah, the placebo effect.
It's powerful, especially for subjective things like how you feel. So while the 5 milligram group felt better, we can't confidently attribute it solely to the rapamycin because the placebo group felt better too.
Right, a crucial reminder about interpreting self-reported outcomes.
Yeah.
Okay, so women saw muscle and pain benefits at 10 milligram. What about the men? The report mentioned some potential flags for them.
Yeah, the picture for men was, let's say, more nuanced in the men getting the higher 10 milligram dose.
Yes.
Researchers saw a decrease in blood calcium and an increase in something called blood urea nitrogen, or BUN.
BUN. Isn't that related to kidney function?
It can be, yes. Elevated BUN can sometimes signal stress on the kidneys. Doesn't prove there's damage, but it's something you'd want to monitor and investigate further.
Okay, so a potential caution sign there for men at the higher dose. What about the 5 milligram dose for men?
In the men on the 5 milligram dose, there was a slight increase in A1C levels.
A1C. That's blood sugar control over time.
Right. Exactly. An increase isn't ideal. It suggests potentially less effective glucose regulation. Again, it was slight, but it points in a direction you wouldn't necessarily want to see.
So it really does seem like a different story for men versus women in this trial, at least with these specific outcomes. Benefits for women, but potential yellow flags for men.
That's a fair summary of those points. It highlights the complexity. It's not just a simple, good for everyone picture yet.
Definitely not. The study also dipped into gut health and this idea of epigenetic age. Any clear results there?
The gut health findings were, well, a bit messy and, again, seemed to differ by sex.
How so?
Men in the 10 milligram group showed signs of gut dysbiosis.
An unhealthy bacterial balance.
Essentially, yeah, not something you generally aim for. And the women, they showed a trend towards increased gut permeability.
Leaky gut.
That's the common term, yeah. Also, generally not seen as positive. So kind of mixed signals on the gut front and maybe not ideal ones.
Okay. And epigenetic age. Did rapamycin turn back the clock in the study?
They used the True Age test for that, one of the commercial epigenetic clocks.
Right.
And they found no statistically significant changes in epigenetic age in any group over the 48 weeks.
Not at all.
Nope. So, based on this specific test, in this time frame, at these doses of compounded rapamycin, there wasn't a measurable effect on biological age.
So no quick fountain of youth effect detected there.
Not according to this measure in Pearl, no.
Okay. So mixed bag on gut health, no change in epigenetic age, but these really interesting gender-specific findings on muscle, pain, and some potential male-specific concerns. What did the researchers themselves make of all this? The lead author, Dr. Zalzala.
Dr. Zalzal basically said, look, the main goal here was safety and tolerability in a small group.
Which they largely established.
Right. But he emphasized that despite that focus in the small size, they still saw what he called meaningful outcomes, particularly highlighting the benefits in women. He saw them as promising signals, even if the study wasn't designed or powered to definitively prove efficacy.
A cautious but optimistic take from the lead investigator. What about other experts? Matt Kyberlin is mentioned.
Yeah, Matt Kyberlin, a big name in geroscience. His view was quite aligned, actually.
In what way?
He felt the Pearl data provided real support for some of the anecdotal reports we've heard, about rapamycin potentially helping with lean mass, maybe quality of life.
Especially in women. based on this.
Especially in women, yeah, echoing the trial's findings. But he also strongly cautioned about the limitations.
The dosing, the sample size.
Exactly. The low effective dose because of the compounding, the small number of participants. It means we can't jump to massive conclusions. He sees it as a positive step, encouraging, but stresses we need more research.
Which makes total sense. This feels very much like an early piece of the human puzzle.
Absolutely. Foundational, perhaps, but not definitive.
So where do we go from here? Did the report suggest next steps for research?
It did. Several logical paths forward were outlined. Well, obviously using commercial-grade rapamycin sirolimus to ensure known higher bioavailability, or maybe using newer drugs called rapalogs, designed to be more specific to MTRC1, potentially fewer side effects.
Using the real deal drug, basically, or more targeted versions. What else?
Studying different populations. Pearl participants were generally healthy. What happens if you give rapamycin to people who are, less healthy to begin with? Might the benefits be clearer?
Interesting point. And the obvious ones.
Bigger studies, more people, and longer studies. 48 weeks is decent, but for aging, you want to look longer term. Track disease risk, maybe even lifespan eventually, though that takes decades.
Right. Larger, longer trials with proper dosing seem essential. Okay, let's zoom out. What's the big picture significance of Pearl? Why should we care about this specific trial?
I think Pearl is significant because it's one of the very first randomized controlled trials really looking at rapamycin for Healthspan in humans.
A milestone, in a way.
Yeah, a milestone. It gives us that initial, albeit limited, human data suggesting, okay, low effective doses seem safe in this context, and hey, there might be some real measurable benefits, especially for women. The muscle and pain findings are genuinely intriguing.
And it also raises important questions, like the gender differences.
Exactly. It opens up new avenues and highlights things we need to understand better. Plus, that crowdfunding aspect.
Yeah, back to that.
It just demonstrates that the public is ready and willing to support this kind of science. It's not just happening in isolated labs. People are invested.
And it's a great example of citizen science fueling progress. Okay, so let's try and wrap up the key takeaways from this deep dive on Pearl.
Yeah.
Low dose, compounded rapamycin appeared generally safe over 48 weeks in this group.
Check.
The most significant benefits were seen in women on the 10 milligram dose.
Yeah.
More lean muscle.
Less pain.
Yep, the standout finding.
For men, there were some potential concerns raised, particularly around markers related to kidney function at the higher dose and blood sugar at the lower dose.
Nuances we can't ignore. Gut health results were mixed, maybe leaning towards not ideal, and no significant change was seen in epigenetic age via the true age test.
Right. No magic bullet there, at least not yet.
And the experts, they see it as promising, especially for women's health span markers. But stress, this is early days.
Yeah.
We need more studies, bigger, longer, better dosing.
Absolutely. It provides valuable signals, particularly for women, but the caveats, the dose, the size are crucial. We need confirmation and further exploration.
It really has been an illuminating look. Fascinating to see this research unfold and, the public playing a role too.
Agreed.
So for everyone listening,
Yeah.
thinking about these early findings, this idea of using compounds like rapamycin to potentially extend our healthy years. What broader questions does this raise for you? Things about access, ethics, society? It's definitely something to mull over. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.